Chances are, if you're using Instagram, it's probably taking a lot of time each month and energy to create your posts and do all of your content strategy. So, I'm going to be showing you how to use the technique of content batching to only spend a few hours each month creating content that your audience will absolutely love and to really optimize your productivity when it comes to Instagram posts. So first of all, I want to cover what is batching. And batching is pretty much a productivity technique where you set aside a set amount of time each month to perform a task multiple times. And this avoids you from opening multiple tabs in your brain, for trying to create content in the moment, and for making sure your content doesn't take you hours and hours each month. So an example of this is instead of creating your graphic for your post or your photo, writing your caption, adding your tags, and publishing it in the moment, you're gonna spend that same amount of time editing a lot of photos or creating a lot of graphics or writing out a ton of different captions or scheduling a few weeks worth of posts. So you're dialing in on one of the actual tasks that you're doing for the batching, and you're really going to just repeat that over and over again while you're already in the mindset of creating that certain type of content. So I'm gonna dive right into a 5-step framework that I use to help me only really take a few hours each month to batch an entire month of content for myself or for my clients. And the first thing, and my favorite part, is your toolbox. So you want to build a batching toolbox that is going to help you make the most use of your time during a batching session. Because if you're not using the right tools, batching might not work for you, or it's going to take a lot more time. So let me share a few of my favorite tools related to batching. So the first tool is a scheduler. So this is basically what you're going to do to automate your content to post to Instagram so you don't have to worry about publishing it in the moment. So not only is this better strategically because your posts are being published during those optimized times, even if you're busy doing other things, but this is really where that batching comes into play. So instead of having this giant mass of posts that you don't have a home for them to go, when you're batching your posts, you actually can put them into a scheduler, into a calendar, so they will go out and flow. So this is a really great way to get ahead of your content. There's tons of different batching tools when it comes to Instagram or social media content. Later is my favorite one. Buffer and Planoly are my other favorites. So those 3 tools will help you schedule and automate your posts. They have different pros and cons. Sometimes they help you plan your grid, so the visuals. Some of them allow you to look at the entire month. Some allow you to add in your hashtags, and some do a lot of different types of posts. So you're just gonna have to play around and find a scheduler that you really love. Another option is Creator Studio, which is Facebook's publishing tool that's within the actual platform. So this is a really great option if maybe you're worried about if schedulers will affect your post. It's never affected any of my content. They perform just as well, if not the best, but that is a really awesome option as well. The second tool that is, who doesn't love this tool? It is Canva. And basically you want to choose a design tool, and specifically why you want a tool like this is because you want to create your own templates. So if you're using Canva Pro, for example, you can design your own templates, save them as templates, and organize them in folders. So when you actually go to batch your graphics, they're all going to be in one place. And I think for people that aren't designers, it can be really hard to overthink every little part of a design. So to have a few designs that you can easily go in, edit, revise, and keep them super branded and cohesive with what you're already creating on your Instagram feed, it really will speed up the graphic batching part of your whole workflow. And the third tool that is going to be a part of your batching toolbox is a photo editor. So especially if you're taking your own photos, you want to choose an app or a tool that is going to help you easily, literally in a click of a button, edit your photos. Also strategically, this is really great because it's going to create a cohesive look with all the images you're posting on your feed versus having photos that have different lighting, different colors. You want to make sure everything is really cohesive. So I personally really like Lightroom. You basically can purchase presets from photographers or on Creative Commons, or you can create your own presets, which are a set of editing settings. So instead of editing each photo from scratch every single time you go to edit photos, you'll have all of those settings, whether it's your brightness, your contrast, the warmth, all of those things are going to be set in stone, and you can just apply it to your photos. So then you only really have to do minor tweaks, which only takes a few seconds. My other favorite tools are Visco, which is very similar. They have a lot of similar presets and filters for you to choose from, and Tezza. My biggest tip with this is with whatever filter or preset that you're choosing, make sure you consistently use it whenever you're batch editing your photos. So going back to the example where I kind of explained batching, is when you're actually batching your content, you're going to sit down and you're going to edit all your photos in one go. So maybe edit 2 weeks worth of photos instead of every time you post on Instagram editing a photo. So the second part for your batching framework is really going to be the batching happy place. I completely made up this term, but it really is important when it comes to content batching, because batching shouldn't be a chore that you feel like you have to do related to social media or Instagram. But when you're actually doing these batching sessions in the time and place that you're the most productive, that is really going to help boost your batching sessions and make them even better. What I mean by your batching happy place, and this is essentially going to be a time and place and conditions that you work best in. So for me, for example, I absolutely love working in like a coffee shop format. I love working really early in the morning, so around like 8 to 10 a.m. I love to have some like lo-fi jazzy music playing, and of course some type of beverage or snack alongside me. So that is my optimal time to batch. After lunch, in the evenings, it is definitely not my batching happy place. But for a lot of people, maybe you like a really dark and stormy day, maybe you like your candles lit, maybe you like to be in your bed when you're creating your content. That can look different for everyone, and I know everyone has different levels of flexibility with the time that you can create your posts, but as much as you can sit into that batching happy place, that's really going to help make the batching sessions where you're creating your best content instead of forced content. And that actually gets into your flow and sprint tasks. So related to Instagram, we've already talked about so many different types of tasks you might have. Maybe it's filming, editing, writing, scheduling. There's a lot of different types of tasks. So within that batching happy place, that's where you want to do your flow tasks. And your flow tasks are the tasks that once you get into it, time goes by, you're enjoying it, you're in a groove, you're feeling creative, and you're literally flowing through the content. So maybe if you really love photography, it's, capturing and editing the photos. Or maybe if you really enjoy writing, it's the caption writing. But of course, for everyone, there's going to be those sprint tasks. So this is something that you don't particularly like to do, but you know it's essential as a part of your process. So maybe you absolutely hate writing and it's not your strong suit. That would be a sprint task for you. Or maybe scheduling is kind of monotonous for you and you don't enjoy it, so that would be a sprint task. So that's why it's important to also sit down and identify within your Instagram flow what essentially is something that's a flow task, a sprint task, and how you can use that batching happy place for all of your flow tasks. So the third thing you want to do as a part of your batching framework is you want to choose productivity hacks that are really going to help you. And there are tons of different productivity hacks. I'm just going to share a few that I found really work for me. But what you want to do is experiment, because batching is a type of productivity hack, but you want to use other ones to help support your batching periods. First things first, try scheduling it into your calendar. I think it's really intentional, the same way you would set up any task with your brand or business. You want to do the same thing for those batching hours. So set aside that time period, add in breaks, and really be intentional about when you're actually doing your batching. And this will help you also stay ahead. Another productivity hack that really helps me is breaking down each task and actually tracking your hours. So what I mean by that is I like to sit down with all of the tasks that we've already discussed and figure out how long do they actually take and how can you actually put those within the day that you're scheduling. I think a lot of times we can say, oh, we want to create an Instagram post, but it may take longer or less time than we're actually predicting. So starting to time your actual workflow so you can figure out how you can optimize things and how long things are actually taking you will really help you. One of the best productivity hacks is the Pomodoro technique. So pretty much what this technique is for 25 minutes, you're doing a task, then you're taking a break, and then you go 25 minutes on again, another break, and you repeat this 4 times until you do a longer break. So of course you can kind of do your own format for this. I find that 25 minutes is not enough time for me, so I like to go upwards to an hour. But pretty much essentially what this does is just make sure that you're adding in breaks to make sure your mind is fresh, your brain is fresh, and that you don't go in through an entire batching session and your brain is absolutely fried from all the Instagram things. So definitely test out those techniques, but know that there are tons and tons other ones for you to use. So the fourth step is when we actually get into creating the content, but you're probably wondering, where do all these content ideas come from? So I want to dive into how you can make sure you have a plan and you have ideas ready to go, because that's when batching really works its best. If you set a batching period to create a bunch of captions, but you don't have topics in mind and you don't have a plan, then you're really just going to be kind of batching ideas and not able to actually get the task done. So what I really like to do is, as a content creator, I like to get into the habit of finding content ideas with everything. So maybe it's talking to your customers, your community, maybe it's talking with your team, or just doing market research in general, definitely following the trends and news, but also just being sure that you're kind of being inspired by everything around you. I always like to think of everything is content in your day-to-day work life and, productivity life. So try and think of how you can constantly be thinking of ideas and storing them somewhere. So whether you have a project management tool, a document, a notebook, I always get in the habit of storing my ideas, so when I get ready to batch, they're all ready for me to go. I'm going to show you a little behind the scenes look of how I actually batch my own content for my clients. So this tool that I'm using is Airtable, and Airtable is kind of like a spreadsheet, kind of similar to Google Sheets, but I absolutely love it for content calendars because it's very collaborative with my team and my clients, but it's also great for just organizing content. So kind of how I had it set up, and kind of you can use this to help inspire maybe your Airtable spaces or systems that you already have in any tools that you're already using. So first of all, we want to add in the date that we're going to publish or schedule the post to go live for. And then I like to add in the content pillars or the actual categories that we'll be discussing. Visually, I think it's really nice because you can see if it's really balanced, if I'm posting too much about one thing and different things like that, but it also kind of helps inspires those topics that I'm going to be using. And like I mentioned, always storing ideas is really important. So what I like to do is I like to add in any topics that I have off the top of my head and any important dates like new launches, and I like to add all of that into the topic brainstorm section. So this isn't going to be a final caption. This is just the topics that I have in mind. And then I love writing the entire caption inside Airtable, adding in the emojis, adding in the call to action, everything that you're essentially going to need when you're actually scheduling it. So as you can see within here, we also like to put in some image ideas and actually include the actual image, the cover photo, and different elements like that. They are attached directly in Airtable. And then essentially what I do is when I'm getting ready to actually publish it, I will just schedule, copy and paste this caption,
add in my photos directly into Later. So this is kind of what Later looks like. This is where you upload all of your media to the left. And as you can see, you can add in a lot of different types of accounts. So you really can automate content for different types of platforms. You also can use it for your stories. So if you're wanting to schedule stories, you still can plan and batch those as well. This is the preview option that I mentioned in Later. So this is where you can visually see what your grid is looking like. And week to week, you can look at what's going live, what isn't. So another thing you want to note is how you actually just drag and drop these images that you have that are ready to go. And then you're just going to paste your caption here, and you can pretty much call it a day from there. So that's why it really makes it easy within your batching workflow. Scheduling is a part of that. Writing captions is something that you batch. Adding in your topics and content pillars is something you batch. So hopefully this kind of gave you an idea of how you can batch your own content using some of the tools that I use.
And the fifth and final step that's a part of your batching framework is going to be repeating and reviewing your batching, because you want to implement all these tips and strategies that I've been sharing with you, but you also want to take the time to review what worked, what didn't work, and how you can improve the next time. If you've tried batching before and it's never really stuck, this is an essential part of that process, because what works for me when I'm batching isn't going to work for you. Everyone's going to be completely different. So it's really a process of experimenting and testing so you can find what works and make sure that it sticks. A few questions that you might want to ask is, what can you improve as a part of your batching process and workflow? Maybe it's using a different tool, maybe it's setting up more or less time. Also consider the time factor. Did it take you more or less time? If you have a team that's supporting you, can you add a team member into the mix with creating content, with automating content, with doing tasks that maybe took you longer or you don't necessarily need to be doing? And the most important part when we're talking about this in an Instagram strategy way is you don't want to just automate your content, get super ahead with your content and say, goodbye Instagram, I don't need you anymore, because you don't want to set it and then completely forget it. You want to be sure that you're engaging with your content. So a good rule of thumb to follow is a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes before your posts are going live, and a few minutes, probably 30 minutes after your post is published. That's where you're going to want to go into your posts and engage with your audience. Whether this is your own followers or people that you're following, people that aren't following you that are under hashtags, locations, other accounts, start engaging in your DMs and make sure you're responding to all of those different types of comments. I find that the more I engage around that time that I'm posting, the more engagement you're essentially going to get. And Instagram doesn't like when you just post content and you're not really using it to essentially be social. That's what social media is for. So definitely don't forget this essential part, because a lot of people see drops in their engagement when they start using a scheduler. And it's probably because they're not still going into Instagram. And I think the great thing about batching is it's going to save up your time. So you do have those moments to go in and really engage and focus on the community building part of your social media. So those are just a few of my favorite tips when it comes to batching your Instagram content. Keep in mind that this is a process, so while it only may take me a few hours each month to create an entire month's worth of content, it might take you a little bit of time while you're getting used to batching, but I guarantee you when you ditch the process of posting just in the moment and you get into the idea of, using tools to help you, using different productivity hacks, but also making the most out of your time. So you're focusing on one task, one specific part of your Instagram workflow, and really repeating it over and over again so you can get ahead on your content. This is the key, especially during the holidays, during vacation time, during sales. That is how you're going to stay ahead of your content and beat the overwhelm that comes along with managing your Instagram and your social media, which is really essential during those time periods as well. So hopefully you found those tips helpful, and happy batching.